Welcome all, welcome back at C Square. In this lesson we'll talk about special right triangle and we're going to start with the first one. The first triangle, first special right triangle is what we call 45, 45, 90. Why do we call this guy like that? The whole story starts from this picture where we have a square, all sides are equal, and we see this right angle. If we draw this diagonal, we get two triangles. These two triangles are isosceles right triangle, which means these two angles are equal, and the only way to be equal is that each angle will be 45. So that's the reason we call this one a special right triangle, because you notice how special it is, both angles 45. Now we have a rule here for this 45, 45, 90, which is in this picture. You notice the legs are the same, we call them n, and the hypotenuse is n square root of 2. So whatever the leg is, you multiply by square root of 2. Okay, so this is the theorem, the rules that we will use for the next problem. You see it right here. So remember, this is a leg, so this is n. This is a leg, is n. And this is the hypotenuse, is going to be n square root of 2. Now, since we already have n here, it's pretty easy, straightforward problem. X, which is n, will be nothing else than 8. And y, which is n square root of 2, will be 8 square root of 2. Now let's take a look to the second problem. Very similar, the only difference now n is 8 square root of 2. Remember, this is the leg. This will be the same, n, and this one will be n square root of 2. So let's start with x, which is like I said, straightforward, the same, 8 square root of 2. And the y we have to do a little bit of work. So we have this n, which is 8 square root of 2, times this square root of 2. Okay, so what do we get here? We get 8 times square root of 2 times square root of 2 is 2. So that will be 16. An easy way to remember, if you can, is double this guy when you have something like this. Very similar question, however different, because now you notice on these two problems the hypotenuse is given. This, and that's the reason I'm going to say here, this hypotenuse, you remember, is n square root of 2. These two guys are n. So what I will suggest here, one way to do it is to solve this equation. 24 square root of 2 equals n square root of 2. Solve for n. And the way you solve it, divide by square root of 2, obviously, because you want to get rid of this square root of 2. Obviously, they cancel out here in this case, not all the time, and we have n equals 24. Now, if we have this n, obviously we have x and y, right? Because x is nothing else than n, so x will be 24, and y will be also 24, because they are congruent. Both of them are the same. Second problem, this one might be a little bit complicated, but we can do the same technique. This is the hypotenuse, so it's going to be n square root of 2. This is going to be n, and this is going to be also n. So you want to take this equation and solve for n like we did in the other problem. So we have 24 equals n square root of 2. Okay. How do I solve it? The same way. I'm going to divide by square root of 2 to get rid of this square root of 2. I'm going to have to do it here. So we have n equals 24 over square root of 2. So what do we want to do here? This is a good answer. However, we don't like when the radical, the square root, is down as a denominator. So we rationalize. So look at here how we rationalize the same square root, in this case square root of 2. Write the same thing for the numerator. This is obviously the number 1 That's the reason we can multiply, because we keep this statement the same. And we multiply, what do we get? We get 24 square root of 2, right? Multiply the numerators. And the denominator, square root of 2 times square root of 2, when we multiply these two guys, if you remember, that is nothing else than 2. One last thing we can do here in order to find n, simplify in this case. 24 divided by 2, it's 12. 12 square root of 2. So now we have this n. That means we have x, because x is nothing else than n, if you remember. So it's 12 square root of 2. And we also have y, which is also n. So it's going to be 12 square root of 2. The next special triangle, and the last one, is what we call a 30, 60, 90. 30, 60, 90. And you see the triangle here, 30, 60, 90. Why this is so special? It comes from this equilateral triangle. If you remember equilateral triangle, this angle is 60. All the sides are equal. This is the height, the altitude, which also is the median. That is the reason we cut this in half. And it also is the angle bisector, and it's going to cut these two angles, this angle in half, and you're going to have these two angles that are 30. So that's the reason we have this very special triangle, which we call it 30, 60, 90, which has a rule, is right here. On the opposite side of the 30-degree angle is the shortest leg, and on the opposite side of the 60 degree is the longer, or the longest leg, n square root of 3, and the hypotenuse, which is obviously on the other side of the 90-degree angle, is 2n. This is the rule, n square root of 3, and 2n. So let's see how we apply this rule on this problem. First of all, we should identify this triangle. Is this a 30, 60, 90? Yes, it is, because this is 30. So we have here, on the other side, we have n. The hypotenuse will be 2n, and this leg will be n square root of 3. So now we know n here, right? So we can just simply plug it in. X will be 2n, 2 times 15, and that will be 30. And y is this n, 15 times square root of 3. So this is the simplest one. B, very similar, and I think it's also very simple, because the pattern works nice. But again, let's apply the same method. This is n. Why is this n? Because this is 30 degrees. On the other side is n. This is 60 degrees. So this one will be n square root of 3. And this one will be the hypotenuse, the longer side, 2n. So we want to find n first. Like in the previous problem, we're going to write this equation, 2n equals 20. To solve for n, I'm going to divide by 2. So n equals 20 divided by 2, 10. By knowing n now, we know x, right? Because x is nothing else than n. So x will be 10. What about y? Y also very simple. You see now it's n square root of 3, and it's this 10. So it's going to be 10 square root of 3. Okay. Let's take a look to these two problems. Very similar. Again, you should notice this is a 30-degree angle. So 30, 60, 90. This should be n. This should be 2n. And this should be n square root of 3. The only problem, we need to find n, and that n will be found by solving this equation. 20 equals n square root of 3. I will divide by square root of 3. And we have n equals 20 over square root of 3, which is not bad. However, remember, we don't like radical square roots here, So we're gonna have to rationalize. But now be careful. This is what you wanna multiply by. Again, this is nothing else than 1. And we have here 20 square root of 3 over square root of 3 times square root of 3 is 3. Okay, so now we have n, so we can move and find x. X, again, if you take a look in my picture, is nothing else than n, so it's 20 square root of 3 over 3 and y, if you take a look in the picture, is nothing else than 2n 2 times 20 square root of 3 over 3, and that will be nothing else than 40, 2 times 20, 40 square root of 3 over 3. Let's take a look to the second problem. Again, this is 60 degrees, so now we know it's a special right triangle, 30, 60, 90, and we know this is n square root of 3, and this should be 2n. So again, here we notice this is the equation we need to solve. And how do we solve this one? Just divide by square root of 3, and I think this one is the easy case for these two problems, because you notice square root of 3 cancel out here. They should, and they cancel in the other problem, but also they cancel here. So we end up with n equals 20. So we don't have to rationalize, to spend time on rationalizing the denominator. Now if we know n, we know x, because x is nothing else than n. And y, we know y also, because y it's 2n, so 2 times that 20, and that will be 40. Another case of solving triangle using this special right triangle, and again 30, 60, 90. Why? Because this is 30 degree here. Okay, so if you remember, x is n because it's on the other side of 30 degree. Y is n square root of 3 because it's on the other side of 60, and this is 2n. So the first goal is to solve for n. So this is the equation that is going to help us to get n. So I'm going to say 2n equals 20 square root of 3. How do you solve for n? You divide by 2. We have n equals 10, 20 divided by 10, I'm sorry, 20 divided by 2, it's 10, 10 square root of 3. Oops, this is just n. We're gonna move to what we in fact we want to find out, which is x first, but x is nothing else than n, so it's gonna be 10 square root of 3. And now let's take a look to this y. Y, and this one you need to be careful, is n, which is 10 square root of 3. Right, so this is the n, but then we have to multiply by another square root of 3. So we have y equals 10 times square root of 3 times square root of 3 is 3. And 10 times 3 is 30. Let's take a look to part B. In part B, what do we know now? We know this leg, which is on the other side of 30 degrees, so this will be n. We need to find this leg, which is the longer leg. This is n square root of 3. And we need to find the hypotenuse, which is 2n. I'm going to start with the hypotenuse, because hypotenuse is straightforward. It's very simple. X is 2n, is 2 times this expression, 20 square root of 3. So x will be nothing else than 40 square root of 3. Double that shortest leg. Now let's take a look to y. Y is n square root of 3. So we're gonna plug this and this 20 square root of 3 for n. Okay, so we replace this n with 20 square root of 3, but we have another square root of 3. So don't forget about that. Very similar with the previous problem, we have 20 times square root of 3 times square root of 3 is 3. And the final step, 20 times 3 is 60. On my next part of the lesson, I'm going to look to some examples that involve more than one special right triangle. If you notice here, we have both of them. We have 45, 45, 90y, because this is 45, this is 45, and this is 90. And we also have 30, and then this angle here will be 60. So we're going to use this triangle twice, because we need to find this x. Okay, so I would suggest you maybe, if I think it helps, redraw the triangle, separate them. The first one, 45, 45, 90. This is the smaller triangle, the smallest triangle. This is 15 and this is 45. That means this side here will be 45. I'm sorry, 15. If you remember, the legs are the same, because both of them are n. Now let's take the big triangle, which is 30, 60, 90. And we know this is 15. This is going to be double, but we really don't need that. We need this leg. And this leg is going to be n square root of 3, so it's going to be 15 square root of 3. One last step to find this x. If you notice, this x is nothing else than the difference between the longer leg and this leg of this 45, 45, 90, which is 15. That's it for this problem. The length of x is 15 square root of 3 minus 15. If you need to evaluate, obviously you need a calculator. Let's take a look to this problem where also we need to find x and y. We notice here we have 30 degree, so that means this is 60, because this guy is 90, but also this angle here will be 60 degree, because this angle is 90. So we have, and by the way, this angle here, if you need it, is 30 degrees. Why not 30 degrees? Because this is 60. So we have a bunch of 30, 60, 90 triangles here. Let's see what we can do to find y. So I guess for y, I'm going to go in this triangle. Let me try to draw it. Okay, this is 90 degree. We need to find this y, and this is 60 degrees. So obviously this is going to be n square root of 3 from the pattern. This will be n if we need it, and this is 2n. And if you take a look in the picture, 2n is 6 square root of 3. It's very similar to the problem we did it. We're going to solve 2n equals 6 square root of 3. We're going to solve for n. And that will be n is 3 square root of 3. So now we know this guy, this is 3 square root of 3. And also we know y. Y will be this n, which is 3 square root of 3 times square root of 3. By now I think you know that will be 3 times 3, and that y will be 9. We need to find x, and for that reason we have choices, by the way, but we already know this leg. So let me draw that triangle. So we have this leg of the big triangle, the biggest triangle. We have this leg, and this is a right angle. Okay, so something like this, and this one, like I said, is 30. This is 60. We have this leg, which is right here, is the same of this one. It's 3 square root of 3. And we want to find this piece. Okay, now be careful, this is on the other side of 90 degrees, so I hate to call it n square root of 3 because we're probably gonna get confused, but this leg is gonna be, let's say, m square root of 3. We're gonna solve for m here. And I'm gonna divide by square root of 3. And m will be 3. Okay, so what can I do now? Remember, this is on the other side of 30 degree, and this will be m. That is the x. Okay, and the last problem, a very interesting problem. You have multiple 45, 45, 90 triangles, and we need to find these x, and we know these 3. So we're gonna go slow. If this is 3, this is 3, right? Why? Because this is a 45, 45, 90, and this is gonna be 3 square root of 2. Okay, so again, remember, 45, 45, 90, we have n square root of 2. Now let's take a look to the next step. If this is 3 square root of 2, this will be also 3 square root of 2, because those two are the same. They are this n. Now we look into this hypotenuse now, and this hypotenuse will be this 3 square root of 2 times, remember, we have another square root of 2. So that will be 3 times 2, and that will be 6. That is how much this is. But then this leg here, for this next triangle, is going to be 6. And what about this one? This one will be this pattern, n square root of 2. Remember, now n is 6. So this will be 6 square root of 2. Now this leg here is going to be 6 square root of 2, because these two legs are congruent, 45, 45, 90. But what about this one? This will be again this pattern, n square root of 2. In this case, n is 6 square root of 2, and don't forget the square root of 2. So x will be 6 times square root of 2 times square root of 2, it's 2, and that will be 12. So you can go step by step and find what you need using this special right triangle 45, 45, 90, where we have this rule, n square root of 2. If you enjoyed this lesson, don't forget to click the like button and come back on C-Square for more help. Thank you.